This is Just Call Claudia, a podcast for right-sizing your life and demystifying your relocation. I'm so excited to kick off this season with Suzanne Gignilliat, a luxury broker with at Properties Christie's International Real Estate. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you, Claudia.
So
I'm delighted to be here today.
Excited. What I didn't know, and we now know because of our research on you, which I thought I knew a lot about you, but I guess I didn't, that you were in advertising before.
Yes,
So
I had a brief career in advertising, a very brief career in advertising, but I really wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. I didn't like the strictures of the corporate world on me. And I also had a particularly unpleasant client. And I wanted to be in a business where I had clients, but if I didn't want to work with a client, I could just say no. So I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and real estate seemed like a good fit.
Did you have a broker, cousin, someone in real estate that kind of prompted this, gave you the familiarity of the industry that prompted the move?
Yes, one of my best friend's mother was in real estate, and she had been wanting me to get into the business for years. She was getting ready to retire, and she really encouraged me to come work with her side by side and be her mentee. And I sort of learned at her knee, and I got in the business, and it was a great fit right from the start.
That's so cool. How have you developed your team? Because Joelle is obviously a partner, but you have amazing team members. How has that evolved?
Well, my structure of my group is a little bit different. Most top real estate agents have these huge teams, and you often don't get the principal except when there's a crisis or there's an issue. I just never really wanted to work that way. So I have formed partnerships with several people, Joelle being one of them, and we sort of work side by side on listings and properties together. It's a very unusual structure. The manager of our office doesn't really understand it, but it's worked for me. I don't want to have green, young agents on my team on $4 million listings with a client that I've worked with 5 or 6 times. I need someone seasoned and experienced, and this partnership structure has worked really well for me.
Well, you set the tone of your gracious manner. It's very hard, I know as well, very hard to offload that on anyone. Joelle obviously is such a partner that you feel incredibly comfortable with having her carry some load and vice versa, I'm sure. It's very hard to find those people that can really represent you because when you are an entrepreneur, as you and I both understand, we are the face of our business, right? And I'm reminded of that all the time. And face time and understanding the nuances. We both have very intricate, nuanced businesses, and the understanding of the personalities, right, of our clients. I've been lucky enough to meet many of your clients, and obviously you've been very blessed because you have phenomenal clients. And we always look forward to a Suzanne Gignilliat property, that's for sure. But not everybody is like that. I've never known of your experience with someone that's been challenging because I haven't experienced it over the years. But have you had some challenging situations with clients?
Well, I think a couple of things, and you know this too from your business. When someone's moving, they're moving because of a life change. And sometimes the life changes are very positive. Pregnant with a second child in a 2-bedroom condo, need to get a bigger home. Some people are moving because they're being relocated, an exciting new job. But then there's also tough situations where people are moving, divorces, deaths, or bittersweet situations where empty nesters are leaving the family home. And you get involved with this as well. And you know that moving is one of the big life stresses.
Absolutely.
And then you layer on top of that, the psychological journey that someone's going on at that moment. So I sort of feel, and I'm sure you feel this way too, we're sort of psychologists in this process. We're helping them navigate the journey to the next step.
And aren't we lucky? When you think, I mean, we don't have altruistic businesses, but in a sense, at least I know you and I know how strongly you feel about representing your clients and making them as comfortable as possible. And when I think of your parents, when I met you, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later because I want to talk about our origin story, which you're not aware of it, but the privilege of helping and we are often very senior focused, right? Many of our clients are seniors making that pivotal move out of a co-op, and I know that's one of your specialties with Joelle, out of a massive co-op, 8,000 feet, into a senior community, or as I say, right-sized living, out of 6,000 square feet, if they're lucky to find a 3-bedroom condo that works for them, and then out of the 3-bedroom condo into a 2-bedroom at one of our wonderful senior communities in Chicago. These are tender moments, and our clients need to be really, really handled. And what do you think are some of the defining features of those challenging transactions for you? Because you're cutting deals, but how does it change when you're working with a senior versus someone, let's say, who's 55 and completely 100% for the move? How do you handle that?
Well, I think for a lot of them, and you get right in this mix too, it's getting rid of the stuff. And most people, many of my clients have very high-end homes. They spent a lot of money decorating, very expensive furniture, but it's 25 years old. It's dated. It has nothing to do with the design aesthetic that their children want or anyone else. And it's very delicate. You have to say that nobody wants this beautiful furniture.
I know. You really set me up sometimes. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is my job with you, because our role, and I think we've got it pretty delineated. And as I say to, any broker with whom I meet is, let me be, in quotes, the bad guy, because I'm the person that has to deal with those things, because you're in an elevated situation. You're representing potentially millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate, and I'm there to support that effort. Me and my team are there to support the effort. We're also there to give them sometimes the challenging news of, for Suzanne or Joelle to show this property, it needs to be prepared, right? And we're going to get a little bit more deeply into that with Joelle. But I've got to hear, since I have you here today, and I didn't know, tell me about this velvet hammer.
So this is kind of a funny story. Early on, I had a different partner for a little bit, and not very long, but we worked together. And she had a very different style than I did. She was much more aggressive and kind of blunt with clients, and didn't sort of massage her conversations as well. And we were selling a building, and the building had some issues. And every time she talked to the seller, she would just tell the seller how, this problem, that problem, and you have to be very careful. This is someone's home. And so you have to carefully critique the home. And so one day I called the seller, and the seller said, "Who is this? Is this the velvet hammer or the sledgehammer?"
Oh my God, I love that. Oh my God.
And I was the velvet hammer because I always was a little more gentle.
Yes.
Still hammering, but a little more gentle than the sledgehammer. So, so I had to put that in my bio, and people always ask about that. Why are you the velvet hammer? But that's the origin of that story.
And you're no longer working together for a very good reason. You are not a sledgehammer.
No.
You've created an amazing business reputation. I think I heard someone say, well, those are the co-op queens. I mean, to me, that's really, something to be proud of, right? Because you know the client. And I think it really understanding the client on a really deep level. I just walked through a property on East Lakeshore Drive with a broker. And so many times in my brain, I didn't say to him, but I was thinking, this person doesn't really understand the client, because we have to meet our clients on their level.
Yes.
And I think we have both been lucky to be raised really well and understand, because I always say at times, we are our clients. We understand them like you do. And, you live in Lincoln Park, you live the life of your clients, you're relatable. And that kind of brings to mind all your affiliations, which are really amazing. And how has that impacted, you were on the board for years, right? Latin School, your Yale Advisory, then you're well known in your neighborhood. How does that relate to your business?
Well, my children went to the Latin School for life. They were lifers from kindergarten through senior year. And so that was a really wonderful place for business for me.
Right.
Because in the city, the economics are such that you can't just buy your big home. You
Right.
typically start with a condo, and then you move up to a townhome, and then you might get a big home, and then you get a really big home, and then you're downsizing again
Right,
when the
right.
kids are gone. So I had this sort of wonderful experience of growing up with my clients as they went
Yeah,
through the
sure.
Latin school. And I was very engaged there and on the board for years. And I think I always encourage young real estate agents to go get involved in something that's meaningful for them and let themselves shine in that circumstance. And they'll get business. And it doesn't really matter what it is. If you like animals, go work for a pet shelter. If you like music, go get involved in a music
That's such a
organization.
good point.
But get involved in something that you enjoy, and your business will follow if you do well in that space. And so both my Latin community, my Yale community have all been clients and have helped feed my business over the years.
What percentage of your business is helping others coming from outside of Illinois to Chicago and helping them find their first Chicago nest?
Well, contrary to what we sometimes hear in the paper that everyone is leaving, in the last couple of years, I would say about a third of my businesses have been people moving here.
I love that.
And interestingly, many have been associated in the medical communities. I had several big surgeons moving here. One was a hospital executive moving here. So I just sold something this week with a client from Silicon Valley moving back here. So
Great.
I would say about a third of my business.
Well, technology is a big part of Chicago's future.
Yes, yes.
And we're seeing that. Are you seeing your client base younger with more money?
Interestingly, my client base spans the gamut. I have a lot of empty nesters because I'm in that sort of space right now. And these are friends that I've had primarily through Latin who are downsizing.
Right.
But I'm working with all their kids.
I love that.
So my children's friends are all in their late 20s and early 30s. So I'm starting to work with that group. I have clients across the age span, so it's not exclusively one end or the other. The last couple of years, I've had a series of clients moving to senior communities, but I would say that's a little bit unusual for me.
Well, I know we've helped you with a lot of those.
We've worked on that together.
I'm thinking of various addresses that you and Joelle have introduced us to. And at times I don't even know from where the business comes. All of a sudden it is someone saying, I was told to call you, which you know how much I appreciate and all my people appreciate. But
no, you're a valued part of the team, particularly in those situations where people are downsizing from the big houses and moving on to these very small senior communities.
Right. What are you seeing in terms of the historic homes, the landmark homes? How is that market holding up?
It's interesting right now. The younger buyers don't want to do any work. For those of us who bought homes over the years, we always thought that there was opportunity in buying a house that needed a little elbow grease and needed an update here or there. Younger buyers, I think, have watched too much HGTV and they want it perfect and they want it now and they don't want any marks on the wall and they don't want to do a thing. And so the disparity between properties that need work and properties that are in perfect shape is wider than it's ever been. And I think that's a mistake. I think people are missing opportunities to do projects and make their money on their home that way.
Do you work with your clients to help them at least understand? Have you put together like a portfolio of terrific general contractors? I mean, do you try to point out that this is a real buying opportunity if they just give themselves 9 months, or do you just let them steer you to, no, we want a condo that's done in 6,000 square feet on one level, which hard to find in Chicago, right?
I have typically not recommended a ton of trades, although I just experienced a home renovation myself with a terrific contractor, and I have given his name out because I can give his name out without any pause or concern because he was really, really wonderful.
Right, absolutely. I know when we were working on your parents' gorgeous apartment, and we were so lucky just to really help them move. But I think I will give the bit of the origin story.
I'm dying for this.
It is so fun, and I wish I should have been looking at my notes to see how many years ago. I remember walking around Lincoln Park because Tim and I lived in Lincoln Park at one point for about 3 or 4 years. And all of a sudden, I saw your name like everywhere. And I am saying your name in my brain. And I even said, I've cold called a lot of agents, but pretty much with the grace of being well connected. Then I certainly have never advertised, but then people would come to me from a referral source, right? And it was about 10 days after I said, I'm going to call this Suzanne Gignilliat. I got to talk to her. She's got to know about our services. And you called me. And
You manifested me.
I did. I totally did. And I've been waiting to tell you this. And I thought this would be a perfect time. But when you said your name, I was like, I brought you to me. And then when I sat down in your parents' gorgeous living room, and we had so many crossovers with Indiana University and Culver and all of this, it was just this is, like you just said, I didn't bring any rock quartz or any rose quartz here today, but it was the universe, which has really helped both of us, right? In a very kind of corny way, because there's a circularity to the referral, to doing it the right way with the integrity that certainly you and Joelle have, right?
Well, and I've never had any qualms about giving out your name as a referral for what you do.
Great.
Because you do it so well. Yes. No, it was. And I'm so grateful that I manifested you or you manifested me.
I know. It's been, when you look back at your relationships, right? And then, of course, all the wonderful clients we've had and the ability to rely on each other for the right information and keep the project moving forward. And you don't have to micromanage us. And the whole philosophy, your philosophy has been certainly something that we can easily meet. And the privilege of, I get to always say unequivocally, the privilege of moving your mom and dad. And of course, they did have the most fabulous unit to move into. I was very lucky there. But just that intimacy, and then keeping that relationship going with them. And now your mom, it's really very powerful. Since you have been a top seller from day one, how did you focus on certain neighborhoods to become really the authority on those markets? It's Gold Coast, right? It's Lincoln Park, Streeterville,
A little bit of Streeterville.
North Side in general, Lakeview for sure, pretty much hugging the lake, right? But how did you zone in, or did your clients bring you into those neighborhoods and you specialized there?
I think it was a little bit of both. My husband and I first lived in Lakeview, so I did a lot of work in Lakeview and in the building we lived in. And we lived there until for about 15 years. And then we moved into Lincoln Park. But my kids went to school in the Gold Coast,
Right.
so I suddenly had a whole network of Gold Coast people.
Sure.
So I would say my market is high-end properties on the near north side. That would include Streeterville, Gold Coast, Old Town, Lincoln Park, Lakeview, a little bit of Bucktown, not as much. And I, unlike many agents who work all over the city and go into the suburbs, I don't. I stick to my knitting. And
Right.
and if I get clients who want to live in these other markets, I refer them out, and I have a whole network of agents I can refer them to, but I just don't know them. I just don't know the markets.
Right.
So
Right.
I stick with what I know, which is my neighborhoods on the near north side.
Well, also, and we'll bring Joelle into this conversation too, the co-op versus condominium market is very different. And you're very familiar with both and the differences. And again, the nuances, right, of looking at, I just saw one of your closings recently at 209 East Lakeshore, which obviously is that
It's a co-op.
that's a co-op, right? And challenges there and how people have to be aware of the
It's a very different-
criteria.
Yeah, it's a
the
very different.
criteria moving into a co-op versus a condo, and really explaining and educating them, right? So,
Yeah, the co-ops are very different, and Joelle and I are the co-op queens, and we sell in most of the co-ops in the Gold Coast, and they're some of the most spectacular, historic, beautiful buildings in the city. but there's a lot of noise around them that we have to work through because people
Right.
don't really understand them.
And great value.
Great value right now.
Great value. I know that when we've previewed properties or things, I mean, I always ask you, so where is this gonna, what's the ballpark and price per square foot, right? I'm giving co-ops a great plug right now,
Yeah.
but it
You
is.
should. You
Well, I
should.
used to live in a co-op on Lakeshore Drive, and it was phenomenal. Wasn't so great when I went to sell it, but I mean, we still made money on it, but it just,
The grandeur, the
the
architecture.
grandeur, and yeah, there's a different feeling for sure. Maybe not even as transient. It really becomes people's homes. Do you think that
Yes,
applies?
yes, they're different kinds of communities, and you are sort of in bed with your neighbors in a way that you're not in a condo. And so, yes, that's one of the advantages actually of a co-op.
So just for clarification, I know the difference between a co-op and a condominium. Share for our audience what the differences are.
So, a co-op is a corporation, and you don't really own your apartment. You own stock in the corporation, which gives you the right to live in an apartment. So it's a more communal form of living, and condos didn't exist until the 70s. So co-ops were invented in the 20s as a way for people to have ownership in a high-rise building. And so it's an old instrument, and co-ops are regulated by stock and bond regulations, not typical real estate regulations. When you have a condo, you own your unit, and then you own a fractional share of the halls. In a co-op, you own shares, and you have the right to lease your apartment that you're in.
Got it. Getting to the lease part, I don't remember this. Are most co-op owners, are they allowed to, if they want to take a year off, are they allowed to rent their unit?
Very few co-ops allow you to rent
thought
their
so.
units, although they're getting better about that. And there was a situation where a couple in a co-op wanted to, I think they were moving to Europe for 2 years, and they knew they were coming back, and they wanted to come back to their apartment. So the co-op allowed them to
Good.
have a special dispensation and rent their unit once for 2 years while they were, but no, typically renting is not part of the co-op.
Okay. So far, I think we've done a great job of recapping what I wanted to talk with you about. Now, I'm going to bring Joelle and Joelle Hayes with At Properties, Christie's International, your partner, as well, so we can continue the conversation. To learn more about Suzanne, go to SuzanneGignilliat.com.
Thanks for listening. You can follow me on Instagram at CMFTO or check out our website, cmfto.com, to learn more about my business.